This game is one of the best remakes that was released in 2023, and unfortunately, you probably won't play it. This game is from one of the oldest JRPG franchises that's ever been created, having been around the gaming industry for over 25 years now and counting. This game was one of the few JRPGs back in the day that helped pioneer some of the most popular JRPG tropes that we have today. And I unfortunately did not get to experience it when it first came out because, well, the original game came out a few months before I was even born. So I never really knew about or played these games growing up, and I was never able to appreciate this long-standing series that stood the test of time for over 2 decades now. And sadly, it seems like this franchise never really got popularized within the Western gaming sphere like other beloved JRPG franchises such as Final Fantasy or the Mega 10 series. And because of that, this franchise has been massively overlooked by many people, including me, whenever the discussion of the best JRPGs come up. That is until today, where it's recently got an absolutely fantastic remake that not enough people are really talking about. So I guess I'll be one of them and say that this game is one of the best remakes to release this year, and that game is Star Ocean: The Second Story. Second Story R takes everything that the fans loved from the original game and enhanced it to fit a modern day audience. The most noticeable change that came with the remake were the graphics, because holy crap does it look stunning. And obviously it doesn't look as good as Baldur's Gate 3 or Final Fantasy 16, but for a 2.5D game in the same vein as Octopath Traveler, it actually looks really amazing. In the original Second Story that was released back in 1998, the game had this sort of 2D chibi art style and mixes it with a very rudimentary 3D background. Now, it might not look like much compared to modern graphics, but back by 1998 standards, this was actually pretty revolutionary, being one of the best looking JRPGs of that time. Now fast forward 25 years later to the current day, where the remake is released with vastly improved graphical fidelity that makes this whole world just look jaw-droppingly beautiful. There were many times during my playthrough where I felt like I just had to stop exploring in order to just admire the vista of the landscape and to really soak in the atmosphere of this open world. The developers really took the time to create an expansive and immersive world with this really unique 2.5D visual art style that only a few games today can really pull off. One of those games also happens to be one of the best games I've played this year and is on my personal top 10 games of the year list, that game being Octopath Traveler 2. Now, although the world looks really beautiful while exploring, one thing that was kind of disappointing was that there wasn't really that much content to fill it. Like, yeah, there's the occasional treasure chest off the beaten path, but for the most part, the open world is pretty empty with very few pieces of side content. Most of the time I found that there was very little reason to go out of my way to explore this world because there's literally nothing to find. I'm not sure how many optional side dungeons there were in this game, but it certainly didn't feel like enough because I didn't find very many when I was exploring. It could be possible that I just happened to miss all of them, or they're all just in the super end game, but because of that, it really felt like there wasn't much reward for going out of my way to explore this world. Other than that though, the graphic fidelity of this world is still amazing, and it really is a testament to how far technology has come when we compare to how the remake looks to how the original looked 25 years ago. When it comes to being faithful to how the original looked, there's really no question that these developers have done an excellent job at it. And not only did they keep faithful to the original look of the game from 1998, but they've also put in some new additions to the game that really help build the immersion and attachment to the characters, like the visual novel-esque character portraits and the incredible voice acting. And I love these little additions to the game because they give a better visualization to each of the characters when they're speaking instead of having us stare at the chibi models and dated dialogue boxes. These portraits let us truly see just how good the character design was back then because they are very unique. For the most part anyway, some of the companions still look like background NPCs.
Wait a minute! Who are you?
But to counteract that, we get some really interesting character designs like Ashton, who has 2 freaking dragons attached to his back, or Leon, the catboy child genius, or Celine, the treasure hunting mage who's also extremely hot. Either way, every character on the roster got a massive glow up compared to what they looked like back in 1998. And good thing too, because they looked pretty rough back then. I mean, just look at them. Yeesh. Now, if you're new to the Star Ocean franchise like I am, then you'll be surprised to find out that despite this game looking exactly like a turn-based JRPG from the 90s, it actually isn't one. If you didn't know, this game is actually an action JRPG with full real-time combat. Now, it's not the best gameplay in the world because it does have some problems, which I'll talk about later, but at its core, it's really simple and surprisingly pretty fun. You see, despite the amount of chaos happening on the screen, the gameplay is actually really simple. You have a basic attack, a dodge, 2 quick spell slots, 4 assists, and a multitude of items that you can use in battle. That's it. Since the combat is solely action based, your quick thinking and reaction speed will matter much more here because one wrong move and you can die in just mere seconds. But to match this volatility, the spells and abilities that you can use are explosive and a visual spectacle for the eyes. The best part about the combat is that it's simple, quick, and flashy. But the problem with that is that it's perhaps too simple because the gameplay loop really just boils down to just spamming all of your attacks off cooldown in order to just kill the enemies as fast as possible. It doesn't really feel like that there's much nuance to it. You just run at them and hit all your buttons till they die or you die, even at the end game. Meaning that most fights will end within a few minutes, if not seconds. Now there is a bit of strategy involved when you choose your party formation and their AI behavior, but that's really about it. I would have preferred if there was a little more depth to the combat that forced you to play a little more tactically and strategically. I know this is pretty much how the gameplay was back when it first came out in 1998 and the developers wanted to stay true to the original, but I feel like there could have been a bit more of an evolution in the remake so that the gameplay doesn't just devolve into a button mashing fest. Also, just a bit of a side tangent, but the dodge mechanic in this game absolutely sucks because it's really unintuitive and feels awful to use. You see, whenever you press the dodge button, your character would dodge in the opposite direction of the one that you're inputting. So if you're inputting forward because you want your character to dodge forward, they will actually dodge backwards and vice versa. This makes it much harder to do a perfect dodge because you have to undo years of video game muscle memory just to get used to how this dodge mechanic works in this one specific game that originally came out 25 years ago. This mechanic was so bad that I just stopped bothering to try to dodge enemy attacks and I decided to face tank everything because it was just much easier that way. I have never in my life seen a video game do their dodge mechanic this way, and I'm glad more games don't do this because it is straight up awful. And it's even more noticeable in the early game where you're not that strong yet, so you have to use it if you want to stay alive. But thankfully, once you get 4 party members, you'll pretty much never have to interact with this mechanic ever again. Other than the god-awful dodge mechanic, the combat is generally pretty fun for the most part, even though it does devolve into a button masher later on. This game also features an in-depth crafting system that massively affects how you progress throughout the story. You see, whenever you level up or win a battle, you get these skill points that you can use to put into literally dozens of life skill options, which unlock special effects and also allow you to craft a multitude of items. This system, called the specialty system, is the main progression mechanic that you'll be interacting with in order to make your party members stronger and to craft useful items. If you have no interest in crafting or life skilling, then this system will just be another generic stat point system. But if you are interested in the crafting, then you'll find that this system is actually pretty deep and can lead to a lot of useful abilities and many useful endgame crafting options. For example, if you get blacksmithing to rank 10, then you'll unlock the ability to craft some endgame gear for everyone in your party. Or if you unlock the bodyguard master ability, your party members will block the enemies in the overworld, preventing them from moving towards you and sometimes straight up just killing them on their own. This system is actually pretty cool once you take the time to actually learn the ins and outs of how it works. The problem with this crafting system, however, is that it's all RNG based. Meaning that you cannot craft a specific item that you want because what you get is completely random. The only thing that you can do is gather the required materials and press the craft button and hope that you'll get the item that you want, essentially making the crafting a gacha system. Now, I don't know why the developers didn't think to change this for the remake because gathering materials in order to just have a chance of getting an item that you want feels really bad. And I feel like this was the one mechanic that would have been completely fine if they had changed for the remake. But the gacha system doesn't feel as bad as it could have been because the crafting materials aren't that scarce, but I think it still would have been better if it just wasn't like this at all. If the crafting wasn't completely RNG, then I think this could have been a potentially great progression system that you can sink dozens of hours into learning. But ultimately, the developers wanted to stay true to how the original second story was like, so I can respect that. Now another one of the best aspects of this game is the story, because it has such great world building that it develops through the lore and the environmental storytelling. This game does such a great job at blending the sci-fi with fantasy elements to create a really unique universe, which allowed me to get fully engrossed in the story. Now without getting too much into spoilers, the story follows these two protagonists, Claude and Rena, and their journey to pretty much save the entire universe from a bunch of tyrannical overlords trying to conquer it. Now what the remake massively improved over the original is the production value of the cutscenes, because my god are they spectacular. Every animation in this game was so cinematic and flashy that it was just a joy to watch the mayhem unfold in every battle and every cutscene. Like, can anyone tell me what's going on in this battle here? Yeah, I have no idea either, but it looks cool though. Now the story itself isn't really that deep, and it's not meant to be because your individual journey is what's more important here. You see, whenever you start a new playthrough, you'll be given a choice of playing from the perspective of either Claude or Rena, and depending on who you choose as your protagonist, you'll get completely unique cutscenes, dialogue, and companions that are completely exclusive to that character only. For example, if you play as Claude, you'll get an entire subplot that involves him and his father at the Galactic Federation that spans the entire game. And not only that, but there are certain companions that are exclusive to a specific protagonist depending on which one you chose to play as. Meaning that in order to see every cutscene and recruit every companion in the game, you'll need to do 2 playthroughs, giving this game so much replayability. Now some people might be annoyed that you can't see and do everything in one playthrough, but I think that it's pretty cool because it makes each of the runs feel fresh, because you get to see completely brand new cutscenes and recruit totally different party members depending on who your protagonist is. And depending on the choices you make and which of the 13 characters in the cast that you choose to accompany you on your adventure, you can potentially unlock 99 different endings for each of those characters. Meaning that it'll still feel like you're experiencing the story for the first time every playthrough, and I think that's what's really great about this game. Overall, Star Ocean's Second Story Remake is one of the best remakes to release this year, but since this franchise is more on the niche side of the gaming industry, I feel like many people are going to overlook this game, and that's a huge shame. Because if you give this game a chance, you'll find a deep and expansive story that you can sink your teeth into with many exclusive cutscenes and companions based on who you're playing as, giving this game so much replay value right off the bat. Not only that, but the gameplay is flashy and engaging with so many crisp animations that you can do during battle that makes it so much fun to play. And the open world is so jaw-droppingly beautiful that you'll just want to stop and smell the roses while you're out exploring it. All of this combined to make Star Ocean Second Story Remake one of the best purchases for any JRPG fan. But that's just me. What do you think? Do you agree or disagree? Let me know down below, and make sure to like, comment, subscribe for more content in the future. See ya.